Welcome to Real Rockford Files, for tales of the paranormal, supernatural, and the flat-out unbelievable. Today I'll be sharing ghost stories from Arizona. Let's get into it. Story 1. Almost a year ago, I woke from a strange dream. I dreamt that my partner's dresser was missing from our bedroom, and I was staring at an empty space. I awoke with a very uncomfortable feeling and tried my best to rationalize the dream as being more related to the fact that we had a new bedroom furniture on layaway at a local store and the dresser would soon be going. Still though, something didn't feel right. In the past, I've had dreams before pets have passed away. Usually I dream something of theirs is missing, a pet bed, a cage, etc., and I get a very foreboding feeling. This was the first time I'd ever had this happen where it involved a person. Last Memorial Day weekend, May 28, 2022 to be precise, my partner was accidentally killed when his gun fired just as we were turning in for the night. It was a tragic accident, and to this day I don't understand how this could happen. I really feel that the dream I had earlier was a premonition of what was to come, although I could hardly guess it would be the harbinger of something so tragic. The bullet missed me, and to this day I don't know how I am still here. As part of my healing, I stayed up in a northern Arizona town on weekends where I'd journal, rest, cry, and just relax. Over this past Thanksgiving weekend, I decided to read back in the journal I had kept since the accident. I have journaled since I was 12 years old and have always loved the aspect that we can track our progress and growth by simply reading back. I got into bed with my notebook and started to read. As I reached more current times, my eyes started to close and the notebook would fall towards my face, jerking me back awake. After a few times of this happening, I set the notebook down and started to drift off. Somewhere in between that still awake and almost asleep state, I heard my partner's voice as if he were talking right into my ear. His voice was unmistakable. He told me he was so proud of me. I could hear the intonations of his words. I immediately sat up in bed and said out loud, "I heard you, I heard you." He could clearly see what I was doing. He had to have known I was reading back on my journey through grieving his loss. It gives me hope that our loved ones are still with us. A lot of my friends have had signs, so I was happy that it was finally my turn. Months later, I can still replay this back in my mind. I memorized all of it, every syllable. I haven't had much more happen that night. I've asked for a few signs here and there, and he always comes through. On occasion, I will smell pipe smoke in the house when no one has been smoking. Thanks for reading. Story 2. Early 2015, I was working in a small rural hospital. The hospital had a wing for regular patients and a wing for prisoners, who would be brought in from the prison that was located in the town. The hospital prison wing would only be open and used if there were 5 or more prisoners admitted. This way, the non-prisoner wing would not fill up with prisoners, making the other patients and their families uncomfortable. I worked the night shift, 7 p.m. to 7 a.m., and because this hospital was small and rural, there was not any family or people walking around the hospital during the night, as you may see in a larger, busier hospital. Anyways, a lab was located in the hospital that blood samples and the like were taken to. If I had time during my shifts, I would run stuff to the lab during downtime to help out our CNAs. There have been times that I had to run to the prisoner wing alone to get some supplies or meds, and the first few times I did, I was super creeped out. There's something about the air and the feel in there that would freak me out. I got the feeling like I was being watched. I would hurry so I could get in and get the hell out ASAP. After the first few times of going in there alone, I always made someone come with me. One night while walking to the lab alone, I passed the prisoner wing entrance, which was dark and empty. You could always feel a creepy feeling in and near there. No big deal, just walk fast and get past it quickly. So, on my way back to my unit from the lab, again, I passed by the entrance to the prisoner ring. This time, as I passed it, I heard someone whistling a tune in there. I slowed down and did a quick 2-second peek in through the opening. It was dark and empty, no staff in there. Who would be in there, in the dark, and whistling? I know who. No one. So I quickly ran back to my unit and told a couple of my coworkers, who believed me but hadn't experienced anything themselves there. Fast forward a couple of months, it was during the summertime, when our patient load is decreased significantly to mostly just locals. Our unit has 20 beds, but this night we had only less than half of that many patients. The unit has only one way in and one way out for patients. When you walk into the unit, which has an oval-shaped floor plan, the nurse's station is directly in front of you, and you have patient's room on your right and left sides. Each side is a hallway with 10 rooms going down it, and there is another nurse's station in the back. Each room has a glass front, like an ICU room, so you can see inside the room if the curtain is open. Empty rooms have the curtains open, and most occupied patients' rooms have them closed for patient privacy. This night, the patients were placed in the rooms towards the front of the unit, where the entrance is. Most of the staff, the nurses and CNAs, stayed at the nurse's station in the front. One of my CNAs, who was assigned to my patients, ended up sitting in the back nurse's station because she needed a computer to chart on. I went to the back where she was sitting, and I was standing on the outside of the counter so I could face her directly and speak to her while she sat sitting in front of me. As I'm standing there talking to her, I'm looking over her head at the empty patients' rooms behind her. As I'm talking to her, I had to stop, and I'm pretty sure I stopped mid-sentence, and my mouth stayed open. I saw a man with a patient gown on walk from one side of an empty room to the other. I saw him, full apparition, go from one end to the other. I knew that those rooms were all empty. The CNA, watching my face, started loudly saying, What's going on?" And she jumped up thinking that someone was behind her. I told her, not so calmly, that I saw a man in room 113. I went to tell the other nurses. They checked to see if a patient had died in that room, and no one had. The beds in all the rooms are ICU beds, and used for ICU and non-ICU patients, and we wondered if the bed was once then maybe a patient had died on. There was no way to check. This was the topic of the night, since it amped us all up. A few hours later, the little old house cleaning lady came into the unit to clean some stuff and overheard us talking about the apparition I saw. She wanted to share her story and started telling us what she experienced when she cleans the prison wing. She told us that when she cleans in the prison wing by herself, she'll hear someone whistling in there. I was like, holy crap, I heard the whistling coming from there a few months ago. This totally validated my experience. When I first started, there was one particular room that was up by the front nurse's station that would catch my eye. There were times that I would be charting at one of the computers that faced that room, or walked by the room, and out of the corner of my eye, I would see what looked like a man standing at the doorway. When I would look, it would be gone. You could just see it, like out of the corner of your eye. I told one of the nurses who had worked there for a while, and she told me that a male patient had recently passed away in that room. Story 3. I was 6 years old. My older sister was 9. The year was 1982. My mom and dad went out somewhere that night and got us a babysitter. We lived in a very small 2-story, 2-bedroom apartment with one bathroom that was upstairs. Our babysitter was a teenage girl who lived 2 doors down. The babysitter was keeping us occupied, and I remember we were all coloring at the table. I had to go to the bathroom really bad, but I was scared to go upstairs alone. I don't remember ever being scared in that house before this day. I asked my sister if she would come with me to the bathroom. She said no because she was coloring. I kept asking her, almost begging her if she would come with me, but she kept saying no. Finally, the babysitter got sick of me asking, yelled at me, and told me to go to the bathroom by myself because my sister did not want to go. I remember being so scared as I walked up those stairs alone. Before I knew it, I was standing on top of the landing. The small hallway was dark, and so was the bathroom. I stood there on the landing, tilting my head in front of the doorway. The only part of my body entering the bathroom was my tiny hand to flip on the light switch, and as I stepped in the last stair into the hallway. The lights were those horrible fluorescent tubes lights that flickered for moments before coming all the way on. As I flipped up the light switch, the lights dimly turned on, flickering. At that moment, in the dim light, I saw it. The devil was sitting on the rim of the bathtub. It was what you would almost picture in your mind as a stereotypical looking devil. It was red, had horns, and a tail. It sat there on the rim of the bathtub, motionless, silent. We locked eyes for what seemed like an eternity. I was petrified, and I physically couldn't move. The lights seemed to stay flickering a lot longer than what they normally would. Finally, when the lights came all the way on and fully illuminated the bathroom, the devil was gone. I must have ran back down the stairs right after that, but I was so scared I don't remember. My sister says she remembers me running downstairs yelling, "The devil's in the bathroom." She said she remembers running upstairs to the bathroom and moving the shower curtain around to see if anything was in the bathtub. The next thing I remember was my mom walking into the house and me running to her, telling her the devil was in the bathroom. But she didn't take me seriously, so I ran outside to my dad. He picked me up and held me in his arms, and I told him I saw the devil in the bathroom. I remember him saying to me, "I believe you." That was the very first paranormal experience I had that I can remember. It was several years later before I had my next experience with the paranormal. Story 4. Had an experience I figured was worth sharing as it left me a little spooked and perplexed. I was recently out in Tucson for a music festival with my close friend. We drove out from Colorado and unfortunately did so at night, both ways, so didn't get to enjoy the beautiful scenery along the way, but it made for easy driving. After the festival was over, we drove out to Mesa to see our friend from high school, said our goodbyes as we prepared for the 12-hour drive home. We left just after sunset, and about 3 hours into the drive on a mountain pass, give or take around midnight, we were singing along to an old 90s tune, early 2000 pop hits, and cracking jokes and laughing so hard we had tears streaming down our faces. The moon wasn't full and we were surrounded by trees, so it was really dark. As we hit a straight stretch of road on the pass, I could only see in front of the car as far as the headlights allowed, and nothing behind us. There was nobody else on this road for miles but us, and I was suddenly hit with a weird feeling of uneasiness. I had been checking my rearview mirror pretty often as we were loaded down with camping gear, and I wanted to allow faster cars to pass us, but at this point we hadn't seen anyone for nearly 30 minutes. I glanced in the mirror to the black void behind us and back ahead, and after a few seconds I saw a light out of the peripheral vision, and I looked up again. It was a small, dark sedan tailgating us, and really riding us close. Their driver side headlight was out, and the other one was really yellow and dim. I watched as they sped up and got right on my bumper. I mean, like less than 10 feet, where it was uncomfortably close. I looked at my friend and laughed and pointed back with my thumb and said, "Check this a-hole out. There's plenty of room to pass us." And we both checked. The car was gone. Just the same darkness that had been there before, and blur of tree silhouettes. I told him what I had seen and described the car. He got goosebumps and said he had been feeling uneasy on that stretch of pass too. Nothing else notable happened the rest of the drive, but it left a weird feeling in my gut until we made it into the next town. I've heard similar stories of ghost cars over the years, but never seen it for myself until then. I wouldn't consider it to have been necessarily scary, but it definitely left me perplexed as to have no explanation for what happened, and I'm curious as to the history of that stretch of road, if there were any fatal accidents, etc. Can't remember exactly the name of the pass nor the road we were on, but at some point I'd like to look it up See if there's any articles about that pass. Story 5. We went to stay the night at my mother's house. My husband and my 4 young children were already asleep on the pallet we made on the living room floor. I was still laying there trying to fall asleep. Down the hallway, I see what looks like a bubble in the shape of a woman. She is slowly moving down the hallway towards the living room. At first, I think I'm just seeing things and just need to get some sleep. But she keeps getting closer and closer. As she enters the living room, I start getting scared and start shaking my husband to wake up. My 6-month-old baby girl is laying next to us on her back with one of her legs bent. The closer this bubble lady came to us, the harder I'm shaking my husband. I yell his name, and right as he jumps awake, my daughter starts getting dragged across the living room floor by her leg. My husband jumps up and grabs her right before she gets to the hallway. We just sat there for the rest of the night, wide awake, holding our children tightly in our arms. That house has always had a thickness in the air and paranormal things happening. My 3-year-old daughter used to wake up in the middle of the night and start playing with her friends. We would hear her talking to someone and then see her run by on the baby monitor, then see 3 little shadows running after her on the wall. She even told us that her friends were dead and they would tell her to go with them. We asked her where they go, and she went to the back bedroom and pointed in the closet and said, "They go in there." Don't forget to subscribe for more stories. Hope you enjoyed.